What's up, YouTube, and welcome to my pickups video for the month of November 2020. Thought I would start this off with a new arcade game that I've recently just purchased for my collection. It's kind of a weird one. This is the Berlin Wall for Arcade PCB. The game came out in 1991 by the developer Canico, and really strange to build a game with a significant historic event as the theme. As you can see, a portion of the proceeds went to the Red Cross Society of Japan. I would love to know the actual total donations of that. But what this game is actually a cutesy single-screen platformer, of which I totally love to play. I would say it's kind of like Lode Runner crossed with Bubble Bobble, would be the best way to explain it. You've got these little construction guys you play as, and you can play single-player or two-player simultaneous. And ultimately a lot of cute little enemies that you have to trap in the blocks and then stamp them out to have them explode into cakes and other treats that kind of come with the genre. Really unusual. This game was originally planned to have a console release even in the US on the Sega Genesis. It got canceled, and it did get a home release in Japan, but strangely only for the Game Gear. And I actually do have the physical copy of that on Game Gear as well. There's also a modified version for the Japanese Mega Drive. It basically plays similarly, but has some different character art. And it completely loses the Berlin Wall theme, and it was released as Wani Wani World. I don't like that one as much for some reason. But I have been playing quite a bit of this. It's fun. It's easy to pick up. The difficulty curve ramps up pretty nicely. Basically, you play clusters of like 4 or 5 levels, and then there's a little cutscene with a little cartoon character trying to destroy the Berlin Wall and ultimately failing. And then you go on to like another cluster of levels where it adds more difficult enemies. Pretty good mix of enemies, honestly. They don't recycle them as much as you typically see in games like this. Kind of strangely, the attract screen has no sound. Maybe just a dip switch setting I could change. But the actual music in the game's pretty good, so kind of like that as well. But thought I would give you guys a glimpse of this before I move on to the console releases, just running on my Sega Astro City arcade hardware. And after the cut here, we will pick the video up with the rest of the console stuff. Alright, we'll pick it up there with the remainder of the pickups for the month from console systems. Overall, I didn't do any major travel whatsoever this month. I think I stayed in Missouri for the whole month, which is pretty unusual. I did take one day trip to the other side of the state and got a few pickups from that trip, so I'll show you those. But ultimately, I bought a few things online and really kept it kind of low-key. I had some unexpected car expenses this month that took up some of my game budget, and ultimately that left me with a few pickups this month, but still got some things that I'd really been looking for a long time. So happy to get that into arcade board, and we'll move on to some of the console games as well. First one of these is one I've been really wanting for a long time and just keep holding out to get a nice looking copy of, and that is Batman Returns for the Sega CD. This was a early release for the system, so it still came in the cardboard box. These are incredibly condition sensitive, as most people smushed them and things like that. I would say it's amplified even more because some younger players had a Batman game. And then what makes this one also condition sensitive is just that it has just a black color around all the edges. A lot of them just get frayed and they look terrible. This one's not mint by any means, but it's definitely above average compared to what's out there on the market. I think games like this are actually really hard to value because there's such a huge disparity in the actual quality of the boxes that are out there in the market. Why I wanted this game is just what I'd always heard about this is that this one had some distinct differences from the Batman Returns game on the Sega Genesis, and it really does in that it has a kind of a whole separate game based on driving scenes with the Batmobile, and they're really well done. They do play very frantically. You have a very tight time limit to get through them, but they're really pretty interesting to play, and it kind of gets you addicted and keep wanting to go. The other side of the game, which is the action adventuring type stuff going on, the platforming, it's not very good, and it wasn't very good on the Genesis either. It's really not enhanced that much for this version, and I think I would stick with the driving version of the game. They probably knew that was the case, that the driving was going to be the big seller of this, and you can go into the menu options and only play the driving scenes if that's your preference. So pretty decent for an early Sega CD title, and this was one that I believe Core developed in the UK. can't find that on the box, but Core developed a lot of the early Sega CD titles and really put a lot more effort into the system than probably any of the other Western developers, so I would say that this most likely came from them. But overall is a pretty decent title, and would recommend it if you're still looking for Sega CD games to pick up. I did get one PS1 game on my little day trip. This is one that I always liked the cover of this game, but I never really explored it. I found this incredibly cheap, so I decided to go ahead and grab it. This is Dead in the Water. It's, I believe, just like a extreme boat racing game, or jet skis, or something like that, but I haven't had a chance to pop it in yet. It does have the tagline on the back that it has 13 off-the-hook characters to choose from. Word. So maybe that's pretty good. One thing that's pretty neat about this, just looking at the peripherals it supports, is this one does support the link cable, so you could have 2 copies of the game, 2 PlayStations, 2 TVs, and be able to play linked up 2-player versus having a split screen. So kind of nice that it supported that, because this was not a super early release, and most of the link cable games came out much earlier in the PS1 library. So just nice to have a new PS1 game. I've really slowed down on what I've been getting for the system, but there's a few little odds and ends like this that I always thought were worth checking out, and especially if I can find them cheap, I might as well try them out. I did get 2 complete-in-the-box original Game Boy games on that same day trip, and these were both really nice finds. The first one of these I had never seen in the box before, and I got a really good price on it compared to what I see this selling for online. This is Boomer's Adventures in Asmic World. This is such a weird one to me. Asmic was a very minor developer. They put out some games on the NES as well as the Game Boy, and I think even the PC Engine in Japan had a few Asmic games. But then I think they really just died out from there. I don't really hear anything about them. I think maybe they put out a couple games on the Super Nintendo really early. And this was their idea of having their own mascot, Boomer, that actually appears in the Asmic logo for this game as well as many of their other releases. So I guess they had big aspirations that this little pink dinosaur was going to catch on and really be the next Sonic or Mario. So overall, this one's kind of just a action platform, or like an overhead, more like an overhead puzzle type of game. And plays pretty good. It's nothing really super memorable, but you got to consider this was an early Game Boy release. So this one was super complete. It had the manual and the cartridge and the inner box tray, and it also had a really cool little poster for some of the early Asmic releases included in the box. So nice to have this, and really well kept original Game Boy copy. The other thing I got from that same store was a upgrade to complete, and this is the Arcade Classics Part 3 collection that has one of my favorite shooters, which is Galaga, and it also has Galaxian on it, the predecessor to that game. This is one of the later Game Boy games that supports the Super Game Boy, so it actually is one of the games that's enhanced for the Super Game Boy, and it has a little bonus manual inside that describes some of the extra features that you could use with the Super Game Boy. Overall, there was 4 of these packs, and I think most of them were like early Atari titles. This one was unique because it had 2 early Namco titles. And I think this is probably the best of the 4 collections. So nice to have this one complete as well, just because I'm a big Galaga fan, and then I'll just sell off my loose cartridge I had of this one. Continuing the portable theme, I also got one more game from that same trip. This was a Virtual Boy game that I've wanted for a while. Initially I passed on this game, but then I keep watching videos of like best Virtual Boy titles, and this one keeps showing up. I haven't had the chance to test my eyesight lately and pop my head in the Virtual Boy to play it. But this is the Wario Land game for the system. So Wario, just called straight up Wario Land. This one is, exclusive to the system. Wario Land is also on Game Boy, but I think this one has been enhanced really for the 3D of the Virtual Boy. And probably a little bit more effort was put into this than a lot of the early Virtual Boy games. So I would say that, while this wasn't a pack-in title, it probably could have been. It may have sold more systems than like the Tennis was that was the pack-in game. So I do still have my Virtual Boy hooked up. I just need to, again, get my eyes ready to take that red glare and give this game a proper try. But I've always looked forward to checking that one out. One game I have been playing extensively this month is also another portable game. I did get one game for my Neo Geo Pocket Color collection this game that I've been wanting for a really long time. This is, I think it's pronounced Facile, something like that. I don't know how to exactly pronounce this. It has a very weird title. This one is very hard to track down in this form that I'm showing you. So what this is a ESRB rated US version of the game in full English. There is very easy to find Japanese cartridges out there, but they do not play in English, so ultimately that would not be the easiest way to play this because it's pretty text heavy. And then there also is a UK release that came fully complete in the box, also in English, that's pretty desirable. Why this one's unique in the US form is that this came out at the very end of the Neo Geo Pocket Color life after the system was already dead, and a few of these games trickled into wholesalers' arms, and they actually just sold these as loose cartridges in combination packs with other Neo Geo Pocket Color cartridges. So why I say this one is so hard to find is that this one never had a box and manual for the US market. The only way to get this game if you want this US version is a loose cartridge like this one. And the other game that is in the same boat as that, same situation, is The Last Blade, and I do have that one already too. So it gets me the two exclusive loose cart games for the Neo Geo Pocket Color that unfortunately never had a box or manual. Ultimately, I really like the game. I've been playing it quite a bit. Like I said, it's a strategy RPG. Really innovative for its time. It has just a lot of different upgrades. You play as mech characters in it, with some humans that interact with in between stages. And overall, it was definitely trying to push the Neo Geo Pocket Color hardware to levels that you definitely wouldn't have seen on a Game Boy Color at the time. For instance, the introduction to the song has a fully voiced song to it. So like full lyrics and things like that on a little 16-bit cartridge. It's pretty impressive for its time. But really like this game. I'd always heard good things about this. It got reviewed very high in magazines at the time, but the system was just basically dead, and it never got proper distribution in the United States. I would assume people in Europe that tracked down that fully complete copy are pretty proud of it as well, because again, that one had a full release with the box and everything. But most likely, 9 times out of 10, when you see this game for sale, you're going to find a loose cartridge, and it's going to be the Japanese version. So if you're interested in tracking it down, that ESRB rating is actually pretty important to look for, just to be able to identify the cartridge. There's also a lot of bootlegs of this out there now, because this one's gone up in price a lot, so just be careful of that if you're out shopping for this game. That is all the games I got this month, but I did pick up one other game-related thing, which was some early magazines, and these also came from that little day trip I took. These are very early issues of Game Informer, and I think this gets me up to a complete set of at least the first couple years of Game Informer. It's not that impressive because they were only a bi-monthly magazine, and I think even before that a quarterly magazine, so there's not a whole ton of issues that make up the set. But this is a issue from summer of 1992. And they were very, very thin magazines the first couple years. They only have maybe 20 pages. Ultimately, it got bigger over time. This had a very strange cover, or game to put on the cover of the magazine. This is Stanley, the Search for Dr. Livingston on NES. Not a very notable NES game, and I don't think anybody really cared for it even at the time. But really weird that got the cover treatment on this one. So one thing I would say about these early issues of Game Informer is they did feature some games that you didn't see in some of the more major magazines. Probably was just due to who they could actually get licensing rights to get a cover exclusive. So nice to have that one. I also got the spring issue of 1992, and again, I think this finishes off my first 2 years in the magazine. This one's a little more interesting cover-wise. This one has Super Adventure Island on it with that neat little Master Higgins artwork on it, so a game I always liked, and I think it makes a pretty cool cover for an early issue of the magazine with pretty humble beginnings. If you're not familiar, Game Informer obviously still exists today, but originally started as the magazine through the games chain Funko Land, and these were, if you didn't have a local Funko Land store, Funko Land was big into mail order at the time, and you could sign up for a subscription to Game Informer through their mail order catalog, which a lot of people shopped. So when I was paging through these, I found another nice little treat was a very early Funko mail order catalog, and I think this is from around 1992. Pretty simple stuff, but it was, promoting their fun club, which is how you subscribed and you got the magazine, and then it has, the pages of all their games, what they would pay, and what they sold the used titles for at the time. So you had full lists of NES and Super Nintendo, Genesis, and stuff like that in here. The other thing I thought was pretty interesting is that they actually sold Neo Geo AES games during this time. So if you look in here, you could purchase some of the used Neo Geo AES titles for between about 120 and 150 bucks, which still sounds like a lot, but ultimately those are pretty good prices compared to today for some of those cartridges. So nice to have another bonus one of these. I've got a few other ones. These are actually pretty expensive on eBay, so I think this little catalog being in the magazine is worth more than the actual magazine was. But nice to have this as well, just as a little bonus, and kind of a fun trip down memory lane just flipping through this. I did do some mail order with Funko Land back in the day, and I liked paging through these catalogs even though they didn't have any pictures in them. So that is everything I got for the month. Hopefully you like this video. Please take a moment, like, comment, subscribe. Let me know what you think, and I will talk to you soon. Have a great day or night, wherever you are.